Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this coverage regarding the 21st COMESA summit being held in Egypt in the new administrative capital. We're going to be looking and discussing the presidency and the chairmanship of Egypt for the 21st summit of COMESA. We're going to be talking about all the possibilities, the trade and economic relations and cooperations between Egypt and the rest of the COMESA member states. But before we start doing that, let's check out some of the stories making the news today. And we'll start off with the 21st summit of heads of state and government representatives of the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa that wrapped up its activities at the new administrative capital in Egypt today. President Abdel Fattah alSissi addressed the summit and presided over its closing session. The theme of the summit was boosting resilience through strategic digital economic integration. Here are more details.
President Abdel Fattah alSissi presided over the closing session of the 21st Summit of Heads of State and Government Representatives of COMESA at the new administrative capital in Egypt on Tuesday. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli addressed the closing session, along with a number of heads of governments and officials of member states. In the opening session, President alSissi said coronavirus has severely impacted African economies, adding that encouraging business in trade, agricultural and industrial arenas is vital for recovery. During the event, the president assumed the chairmanship of the COMESA from Madagascar, President Andre Rajoelina. As he chaired the meeting, President alSissi said Egypt seeks to boost industrial integration amongst African countries in all fields. He noted that Egypt has presented an initiative for industrial integration and production increase under the slogan Made in COMESA. The president expressed Egypt's readiness to trade expertise with other COMESA countries, adding that great importance is given to removing obstacles to the business environment. He said he was sure the COMESA has resources and abilities to face all challenges. Addressing the summit, Madagascar President Rajoelina stressed that challenges Africa had witnessed highlight the importance of digital integration. The COMESA Secretary General, Chilishe Kapwepwe, addressed the summit, saying that coronavirus had created a number of challenges to many African states. She extended thanks to Cairo for the support and resources offered to COMESA, adding that the bloc would go ahead with the tangible governing program for all member states. African Union Commission Chairman Moussa Faki also gave a speech to the gathering via video conference that focused on African integration and resilience before challenges primarily the coronavirus. He said barely 6% of Africa's citizens have received the vaccinations, which he says remains a major challenge. Faki added worries of armed conflicts and instability in Africa must be addressed and called for mobilizing efforts to restore peace to member states. Meanwhile, the African Development Bank President, Dr. Akwinumu Adesina, gave a statement before the gathering via video conference. He addressed focusing on the bank's financing of internet infrastructure projects, digital transformation and promoting digital skills on the African continent. He said development projects must prepare for a future dominated by artificial intelligence. Through video conference, Tunisian President Kais Saied focused on digital transformation, calling for boosting the digital economy and the establishment of smart societies. Also, Burundi's president focused on challenges facing the continent and importance of solidarity. The chair of Libya's Presidential Council, Mohamed Yunus Menfi, addressed the event, saying food security has also become a great challenge internationally, especially after the coronavirus pandemic. He called on COMESA states to play a more active role in securing food aid chains.
And on the sidelines of COMESA, President Abdel Fattah alSissi held talks with Madagascar President Andrea Rajoelina on Tuesday, which tackled means to foster bilateral ties, especially in the security, economic and developmental fields, in addition to a number of African issues of mutual concern. During their talks, President alSissi hailed Rajoelina's chairmanship during the past stage and praised bilateral ties that bind the two nations. The President expressed Egypt's keenness to promoting cooperation with Madagascar in trade, technical support and capabilities building in different fields. The meeting probed most important issues raised at the summit, as well as various aspects of bilateral cooperation, especially in security, economy and development fields, in addition to the continental issues of interest. He welcomed the Madagascar leader's visit to Egypt, and for his part, Rajoelina expressed his appreciation to Egypt's leadership, government and people, hailing the friendship and brotherhood that bind the two nations. He confirmed that he is keen to continue expanding cooperation in various domains, especially in the developmental and technical fields. And also on the sidelines of the COMESA summit, Nile TV's Omnay Al-Hamzawi held the coming interview with the Assistant Secretary General of COMESA for Programs, Ambassador Kipyego Chelugue.
Ambassador Kipyego Chelugue, you are the Assistant Secretary General for Programs of COMESA. Today the COMESA has launched its 21st summit. We all and everyone attending was only speaking about the programs. I think the COMESA this year especially and for this summit has many more programs regarding the regional integration and economic regional integration and digital one. We need more explanations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Definitely today's 21st COMESA summit has been historic in a way, because it's the first time in a long time that it was being hosted by Egypt. The last time was in 2001. And if you look at the programs that are on show now, the emphasis now is on digital economy, and we are emphasizing the importance of digitalization to propel regional integration. And one of the decisions made by our heads of state is that the theme, which is towards digital integration, is really going to be emphasized. And I think what will happen is we will need to also invest in major infrastructure in digital technology, so that the internet is available to even the most rural areas of Africa. And the emphasis really is to create opportunities for the millions of people who live in our region. And the only way we can do that is through cooperation and enabling trade and investment and industrialization to take place. And there are certain strategies which are now which is included in our 2021-2025 strategic plan to help all our countries work together towards achieving all these goals.
And today as well, how Egypt has succeeded to His Excellency, the President of Madagascar, to be the President of the COMESA. And Egypt, as everyone has, as all COMESA member states, has highlighted Egypt's role on the regional level. What are we waiting from Egypt, especially heading the COMESA summit for next year?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a very long time that Madagascar has been heading this COMESA summit, almost 5 years. So now Egypt is coming in with a lot of new energy and interest, because it sees COMESA as an organization that can propel Africa forward, because COMESA is an institution that has working institutions that contribute to regional integration. So Egypt will bring in expertise in certain areas, for example, in transportation, they emphasized the issue of water navigation, they emphasized the issue of power generation, and they have also emphasized the issue of using the internet and making it available everywhere. But also in the area of agriculture, there are many programs that Egypt is an example for the rest of the region, and I think that is why it's very exciting to have Egypt as the leader of COMESA.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right.
These were some of the stories and updates regarding the COMESA summit, and President Abdel Fattah alSissi has received and assumed the chairmanship of the COMESA summit during the 21st session held today in the new administrative capital. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
The new administrative capital is hosting the 21st COMESA Heads of State and Government Summit on Tuesday, with in-person and virtual participation of member countries and heads of African economic blocs. The 21st summit is conducted in both physical and virtual formats and was preceded by two policy organs meetings, the 42nd meeting of the Council of Ministers and the 42nd Intergovernmental Committee. President Abdel Fattah alSissi took over the chair of COMESA from the President of Madagascar before launching the COMESA Medium-Term Strategic Plan 2021 to 2025. Held under the theme Building Resilience Through Strategic Digital Economic Integration, the summit aims to rally the 21 member states on how to safeguard and advance the COMESA regional integration agenda using digital platforms to facilitate doing business and enhance their resilience to face the economic repercussions of the coronavirus pandemic. The 21st summit is reviewing a number of key reports on economic integration priority issues, the implementation status of regional integration programs in the region, as well as reports on the current COMESA round and the COMESA Business Council. The summit also witnessed the swearing-in ceremony of the COMESA Court of Justice Appellate Division Judge and the newly appointed commissioners of the COMESA Competition Commission and the COMESA Committee of Elders, in addition to the announcement of the winners of the Media and Innovation Awards. Before its convention, the 42nd meeting of the Council of Ministers met to take decisions on various recommendations presented by the Intergovernmental Committee on the way forward in implementation of COMESA integration programs. They reviewed progress reports presented by various sectors and COMESA institutions and made recommendations to the Council of Ministers for decision-making. Egypt presided over the COMESA Group for a year for the second time, as its chairmanship of the COMESA Group includes ambitious and clear plans with rapid achievement rates to increase aspects of cooperation with COMESA countries. Furthermore, Egypt will attract non-members of the Free Trade Zone to join and apply customs exemption on their imports from COMESA countries, proposing the establishment of a mechanism to review commercial policies of COMESA countries. Meanwhile, Egypt aims to share its experience in the field of SMEs with COMESA members through the organization's secretariat. It is also working on encouraging agricultural integration between COMESA countries and involving the private sector in agricultural development projects.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're joined here tonight in the studio by Engineer Khaled Mekati, the chairman of the Egyptian Exporters Association, to shed more light on tonight's coverage of the COMESA 21st Summit. Engineer Mekati, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, sir.
Engineer Mekati, Egypt now is hosting the 21st Summit of COMESA. This is not the first time. Egypt presided over the COMESA Summit in 2001, which is 20 years ago. Now, what is the significance for both Egypt and COMESA during this time specifically, after the coronavirus pandemic, after the battered global economy that has been suffering ever since the pandemic took place, and for the African continent?
First of all, thank you for hosting me.
Pleasure.
It's always a pleasure to meet you always again. COMESA is a very important market to Egypt, since it's at least 60% of our exports goes to the COMESA countries. I mean, our exports to all Africa is barely around 4 billion. 3 billion of them goes to the COMESA. That's why the importance of the COMESA countries to us is very highly important. And coming with the corona period that we all suffered from, and now our president is going to be heading the COMESA for the coming 5 years. So I think that's a very important turnaround for the common market right now of the East African part, because I think our intertrade between the COMESA is going to see a new era. Especially when we're talking about, and the President, His Excellency said today, we're talking about sustainable development through digitalization services. So we are even talking about what we are all living now, is the digitalization era. So it's going to be a turnaround, because it is not only about intertrade, about increasing our exports, it's about technology transfer. It's about service transfer. It is about what I can do and what you can do to us. So it's a win-win situation. That's what we're looking at, and that's what I think the President is looking at. How can we be an added value to the COMESA market, and what can the COMESA market be an added value to this? But not only that, how can we be the bridge of the technology transfer coming from Europe through our agreement with the European Common Market and passing it over with the Egyptian companies and the Egyptian technology over to the African market, especially to the COMESA. And again, taking whatever we build, whatever we do with the COMESA countries and passing it over and exporting it to the European market. So it's a huge task, and it's, I think, we have great hopes with our president being the chairing the COMESA for the coming 5 years, and with his persistence, high persistence that he has, and the vision that he has, I think we will see a big turnaround.
Yes. Well, you've mentioned that Egypt being a bridge between the European Common Market and the COMESA member states, East and Southern Africa. Now, the theme of this summit, and as you've mentioned, it's mainly focused on the transfer of technology and the digitalization of the whole process as a whole. Now, Egypt has been going through its own digital transformation over the past few years. And the European Common Market shares the same thing. But what about the other COMESA members, the other Southern and Eastern African states? Are they on par? Are they also up to date in terms of digitalization and transfer of technology? Would it be easy for Egypt to trade and cooperate with these countries, the COMESA states, also in terms of digitalization and technology transfer?
They are. I mean, if you look at Kenya, for example, with the fintech technology, they are way ahead of us. I mean, and they started earlier than we are. So the African COMESA countries are, yes, aware about the digitalization era. Some countries of the members of COMESA has taken further steps long time ago, since 2016, I think, 2017, when I was first time going to Kenya, and they were already in fintech technology. Everything was on payphone, and all mobiles were there. They were not landlines, they were only mobiles. So the technology is there. The importance of the digitalization is very well aware among the citizens in the East African country members. So it's there. But how deep is it? It varies from one country to the other. Okay? So what we should be looking at and what we should take the lead at, since we have done a big transformation to the digitalization era, thanks again to our president and our government, is that we should be leading them to do what steps we have done, because we have the expertise, we have the know-how, we have done it. And the amazing thing, and that has the acknowledgement, is that we have done it in a very short period. In less than 2 years, we've been there. I mean, we've been working since, I think, 4 years, but in the last 2 years, the achievement has been immense, okay, in the digital transformation, in all aspects. So we should be leading this. This is a part of the infrastructure that we should be leading. It's not only on-ground infrastructure, which is another acknowledgement and astonishing achievement that we have done, and what we need to do with the African member countries of the COMESA, because that's going to enhance our trade with them. So that's very vital for the economical part in sustainable development. And is also very vital also for the social development, that you have a proper infrastructure. But now adding to it the digitalization transformation is making ease of life. It's not only for the human being, it is also for healthcare. If he has something and he needs immediate healthcare, what can digitalization do to him? Also for the ease of transportation of goods. Where are we with the digitalization? Now you can see people are talking, for example, on Zoom instead of traveling to each other. So things are much easier and much quicker. So we're living in an era, and we will live in the coming era, or a very speedy way of doing business, rather from the conventional way. And I think Egypt has all the capabilities and the means to lead the COMESA region towards that direction.
Yes. Well, whenever we talk about trade and cooperation between Egypt and other countries or the COMESA member states, people always think of final products, but now it's much more than that. As you've mentioned, there's cooperation in the health sector, transfer of technology, cultural cooperation, also developmental and sustainable energy cooperation. So it's not just a final product in a box that is being traded, but how much of it, this trade that amounted to $3 billion, as you've mentioned, that is for final products, commodities, and non-tangible products such as development and transfer of technology and services and healthcare and developmental projects and social and human development?
Look, on the economical part, we have to be looking, like you said earlier, it's not only an export of a final good or a final product, because that's the no added value to the other side. You're just receiving another product. And what we're doing in Egypt is we're trying to cut down on our imports and lower the deficit between imports and exports. Definitely they will be doing the same. So what we need to be looking at is how can we do a win-win cooperation? How can we transfer a knockdown technology and assemble it over there? So we're still exporting, but we're also adding value over there. And we're still also marketing our brand names. So if you see, and if you've noticed in our home appliances, in the engineering sector, we are exporting now as a knockdown, CKD or an SKD, and we are assembling it in some of the COMESA countries, like in Kenya, in Burundi, in Uganda. First of all, it is with our name, with the Egyptian brand, so it's creating a brand awareness for the Egyptian product over there. You're creating an added value, you're doing job opportunities over there, and that's very well received from the African countries. Beside that, you can also work with the European, getting a technology from the European, enhancing it with your product over there, exporting it again to the African countries, assembling it over there, especially when we talk about agriculture. We are assembling East European tractors here for agriculture. We are going to be then re-exporting it over there, because one of the vital sectors over there is agriculture. The land is very fertile, but you need to develop the products or the land. And that's what is lacking over there. Big companies developing a lot of agricultural land over there, especially in commodities. And the most commodities over there is barley, is wheat, is maize, is yellow corn, is all these that is worldwide needed. And we are importing, as Egypt, these commodities from the European side, from the Western world, rather than importing it from our neighbor members and free trade area that we should be doing it. So how can we do? And Egypt has a vast experience in agriculture. So why don't we move our technology, coupled with the European technology, and develop the land over there for the Africans, for our brothers over there. And whatever is produced, then we work with them to re-export it to the destination, whatever the market is. So that means you're working with the Africans to develop their food, okay? To make agriculture industry out of what is being developed. That means you're making what we call food stability. And that's one of the main essence in any population growth. The second thing is the health sector, as you've mentioned. And we have seen the private sector now from Egypt taking initiative of doing polyclinics over there. So if we're doing polyclinics from the private sector initiative, we're treating the African citizens, which is in the COMESA is around 580 million citizens, which is a big number. And we have taken a long, I'd say, a successful long road in treating the hepatitis C. We have now treated around 60 million Egyptians. 5 million are cured, 60 million are checked. So that didn't happen anywhere in the world, and at 1,000th of the cost of the international cost. And it's done by Egyptian companies, together through the government support with the Egyptian private sector. Now, if you are going there to the African countries, treating them, treating their patients from hepatitis C, and it's an initiative that our president took to treat 1 million African free of charge on the Egyptian side, that's what we should be doing. Because if you grow with them the food, and you treat with them, treat for them their health, that is a proper human African that will be a productive one when you take him to the economical side. And that's what Egypt should be doing.
Well, Engineer Mekati, now many African states signed up for the African Free Trade Agreement.
Intertrade, yes.
So how is this coming into play with trade, with the COMESA? Do we use the Intertrade Free Trade Agreement? Is it a different thing? Is it not still applicable so far? It's not really, it didn't reach its maximum potential?
Look, the African Free Trade Agreement has not yet came in full implementation, I would say. But our focus, it will come eventually, because there's no way that it's not going to happen, regardless of what challenges there might be, what resistance might be from some countries, but it's going to come, okay? And you cannot stop against advancement in any business or any way. But what we should be focusing on, and again, I think that's what the vision of our president, if I'm wrong, is that the COMESA could be a very strong, healthy economical zone. Because you're talking about 580 million citizens. They're all sharing the Nile River. You have a very fertile land. The infrastructure is at least there. We have ports from our Egyptian ports, which are 6 on Suez, on the Red Sea, heading to Mombasa or to Dar es Salaam or to Kulwani in Madagascar, in Mozambique. So you have that sea freight. And now we're doing Cape Town, Cairo, Cape Town. That is going to increase a lot of development on both sides of the road. So that should be our focus. Our main direction is the COMESA, because that's going to be a real, very strong economically, very rich with its resources, okay, a very fertile land. And our technology, when you transfer your industries to be there locally assembled, then you're creating an inclusive growth economically. And this is where we should be focusing. We're not neglecting, we shouldn't be neglecting, of course, the West from the economical and the business side, because that's, again, an opportunity over there. But currently, the logistics to go to West is very challenging. So until that's overcome, and it will be overcome, we have to be focusing on the COMESA countries. However, the challenges are there is in logistics, whether it's on ground or on air. And that should be, if the government cannot do it, then the private sector with the government has to join together to overcome it, because it's beneficiary for both sides, for the government as well as for our private sector. Because without overcoming such a challenge, we cannot increase the intertrade. You cannot increase what we're saying, the economical development among the 21 member states of the COMESA.
Well, speaking of the public, the government and the private sector, now, how much is it dependent on the private sector now? I mean, the Egyptian government has been paying a lot of attention, doing its utmost efforts to really try and boost and strengthen the private sector, even in the parliament, trying to include it in the utilities and the services sector. How much of the private sector, how much of a role can the private sector play?
Look, I mean, again, thanks to our government and the leadership of our president, I mean, nobody can deny from the infrastructure sector or in the infrastructure sector, companies working in that sector that has in the last 5 to 6 years went 10 times fold of what they have been doing in their revenues, okay, no, if not more of companies. So they have been thriving in the last 6 years from what's have been happening. So definitely our companies in the private sector has gained a lot of experience within the infrastructure sector, whatever in the construction or in the infrastructure of the roads. We have done 8,000 kilometers of roads in less than 5 years, which is again a very enormous achievement. Nobody has done it in the world. We have done 4 power stations with the Germans and through the support of the German government, again in 2.5 years. Another achievement because of the highly persistence and the follow-up of our leadership. We're now doing a plan from the government has a plan to do 67 water desalination plants and inviting the world with their different technologies to come and have a participation, and they're coming and they are in rows standing because you have it comes in BOT, it comes in PPP, it comes in EPC, whatever you want to do this job of a desalination plant, do it. But again, you're thinking, the leadership is thinking because is how to be more efficient in energy saving when it comes to water, for example. Okay, because again, water is one of the hot topics now. So is that having this plan again. So if we have and we are managing and we're capable of running such plans and such tasks, then we can transfer all this knowledge and all this know-how to our African countries and take the leadership with them, alongside with them, is to develop the COMESA countries in such a direction.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, Egypt has hit $4 billion in terms of trade with African states, and $3 billion of them is with the COMESA member states. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli said Egypt targets boosting trade exchange with African countries and said Egypt attaches great importance to assuming the presidency of the COMESA for the first time since 2001. Madbouli reiterated that President Abdel Fattah alSissi wants Egypt to reinforce regional integration and promote trade relations with COMESA members. He noted that regional cooperation between trade blocs has been a most important mechanism for achieving development. The Premier said Egypt has contributed and is still contributing to promoting commercial ties among COMESA member states. Trade exchange between Egypt and the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, comprising 21 countries, hit $3 billion in 2020, representing 60% of total trade between Egypt and the African continent, which is estimated at $5 billion. A study compiled said that from 2015 to 2020, Egypt has achieved trade surplus in relations with COMESA states that reached $1.4 billion in 2020. The study showed COMESA as one of the promising markets for Egyptian exports, and unexploited export potentials to these countries could reach $1.8 billion by 2025. It added that Egypt's exports to COMESA members Libya, Kenya, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Tunisia reached $2.3 billion. Sugarcane, or beet sugar, and chemically pure sucrose in its solid state come to the top of Egyptian exports to Kenya, Sudan, and Uganda, whilst Egypt's exports of phosphate mineral or chemical fertilizers are commodities with greatest export potential to Ethiopia, Djibouti, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Burundi. Egypt's coffee, butter and copper imports from COMESA are declining compared to Egyptian imports of the same commodities from other countries worldwide. China's on top of Egypt's trade competitors inside COMESA markets, with exports reaching 21.4 billion, followed by South Africa with 7.9 billion US dollars. In this regard, the Egyptian government began carrying out several initiatives and programs to secure more access of Egyptian products to the COMESA market, including the African Continental Free Trade Area that came to effect in January of 2021, as well as launching a forum on investment promotion agencies in Africa to enhance the private sector's participation in projects in Africa.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Engineer Mekati. Now, sir, we're talking about the African states, COMESA, Eastern and Southern Africa, the whole world, and not just the African states. They suffered a big blow economically as a result of the pandemic. And each and every country is really worrying about their vaccines, about getting their economies back on track, worrying about their domestic issues and finances and expenses. Are the African countries and COMESA member states ready to invest into foreign trade and economic relations with other African countries at least?
Look, every single country worldwide suffered from the pandemic. And every single country worldwide has had a different policy and a different attitude towards the pandemic and how to face it and how to overcome it and so on and so forth. So when you talk about economically how each African country will bypass this period, you would be speculating if you would know that I know what they can do. I mean, if you look at us, we only shut down 3 months. And again, thanks to our president, we said, no, we're going to open back, but we will be taking care and we'll be taking precautions of when we open back and go to the market, and our economy should continue to work. And it was a very wise decision, and that's why you will see our economy is one of the largest growing economy among the world. Okay, we're coming the third or the fourth, I think. And next year we're hitting 5.2% GDP growth. That's the target.
Yes.
So again, that's again for a wise vision that has been there from our leadership. Now, how are African countries doing? I think it's changing now, and they are opening back again because they can't, and they have to take the precautions, but we can't close economies because closing economies is definitely going to be on a negative side. So again, we should be from the health side, and that's why I'm saying sustainable development, health being one of them, is that we have to take and pass over this experience that we have managed through the pandemic and pass it over to the African members and African countries. And that's how you should be doing the business. But we also have to develop the opportunity that is a win-win with you guys, that is not only a beneficiary that we will be getting in trading with you or in doing an investment with you, but also there is a benefit coming on your side, taking in consideration all kinds of precautions. Now, as you see, in universities, there's a bylaw now that everybody has to be vaccinated. In ministries, you cannot enter a ministry building without being vaccinated. So it's going. They have to be building the same, or I think definitely they're doing the same. But we shouldn't be holding back because of the pandemic.
Yes.
We should be moving in a very proactive way. Cautiously, but proactively. Because other than that, our economy would not be thriving as it's thriving now.
Yes.
So that's what we should be passing over to the African members. And as I would like to say, there is an untapped opportunities in East Africa going up to 1.8 billion. and there's another untapped opportunities in West Africa, Egypt with them, are rising about to 900 million in sectors and in businesses that we have not even think of doing. So that's a thing that if we look at it, and we have to, of course, look at it and take the action to go there, that's going to be bringing prosperity to them as well as to us. And again, among countries together, because again, for example, sugar, Africa, Kenya is buying sugar cane, not only from Africa, but they're buying it from Brazil. So why should they buy it over from the other side of the world, while they have Uganda beside them, while they have Egypt beside them, and they have Sudan? So how can we be fulfilling each other? That means how can we have a common policy in agricultural development that will serve our needs, and instead of going and looking for other suppliers far away, regardless where they're coming from, and we have our needs there, because we have the land, we have the people, we have the water, we have the weather. You don't need anything else.
Yes.
Okay? So this is something that we should be looking at, and I think again, it's in our leadership vision and direction that that's how they'll be taking Africa, especially the COMESA region.
Yes. Well, speaking of a thriving and a proactive Egyptian economy, the Egyptian economy has witnessed growth and a forecasted growth as well, above the 5%, as you've mentioned. Now, yourself being the chairman of the Egyptian Exporters Association, you are well aware of the big rise in Egyptian exports to the rest of the world. And the president quite recently set a target of $100 billion worth of exports in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
With
Very
a special,
ambitious
a very ambitious one, and with a special emphasis on the African states and the African continent as a market. Now, we're talking about $4 billion so far, $3 billion through the COMESA. Now, how far and how feasible is it to really reach such a goal and achieve this target? I'm not saying that the $100 billion will be from the African market, but a huge chunk of it should be from the African continent. How are we going to realize and achieve this goal?
Okay. First of all, as you said, our exports to Africa is around $4 billion. And it's coming out of 500 billion coming to Africa, so we're less than 0.5% of the intertrade among the Africans, which is a very minimal one, and that's not Egypt. So when we look at Africa and how can we enhance our exports to Africa, and it should be on our prime agenda, the president is definitely 100% correct, because if you go and double your exports to 8 billion, none of your competitors is going to realize you, because you're still 1%. And you go and triple your exports to Africa, coming up to 12 billion. Again, nobody is going to fear you or notice you, because again, you're 1.5%. Okay, you're not noticeable, but is coming back with a big impact on your exports, because if you go to 2-folds, 3-folds, that is coming back on your folds. So that's where we should have a focus on Africa, because we're going to be able to double and triple our exports, because the opportunities are there. But we're not moving in a very well planned way, collectively, together as a business sector with the government. So doing this, we have to go together, hand in hand. There should be, there is an export council belonging to the president, of course, that should be agreeing with the private sector. This is how the government should be cooperating with the private sector when enhancing our exports to Africa. Which products should be concentrating on, which areas should be concentrating on, because of course we're not alone in the field. There is the Gulf area, there is Europeans, there is everyone trying to go to the African market, because Africa is in need of everything. Okay? So we should be unifying our efforts, our vision, not only on how to go to Africa, what products should be going to Africa, what should we invest in Africa, what kind of technology we should be doing in Africa or transferring to Africa, what kind of services should we be providing to Africa, and how can we overcome the logistics. I mean, there is the Ministry of Minister Hisham Tawfiq has a beautiful project called Gusur, which is building to have the logistics challenge overcome from Egypt towards Africa, on the eastern part all the way to South Africa, and definitely he's going to have his second plan to work on the west part of Africa. So that's, we all as private sector has to be behind him on that. And we have to use, and we see how he can make it easier for us. That's a government working with the private sector. But can the exports increase with the existing exporters? It will never happen, because you have around 100,000 registered manufacturers in the Egyptian Federation of Industry, but only 4,000 are exporters. So, and 80% of the exports is exported by 20% of these 4,000. So this equation is not going to be a healthy equation if we want to enhance the exports. So what we should be doing, and what we are doing as an export associations, is we are bringing in new exporters to the market, to the field. That means we are working with the Egyptian Federation of Industry, as well as with the Ministry of Industry and Trade, on training new exporters who are actually manufacturers, but selling only in the local market and not looking for the export market. So we're changing this mentality, this mindset. No, take your product, we will get you the market, we will develop to you the need, but that's how you should be. So we prepare him. We teach him how to export. We teach him how to do the banking system when exporting, how to sell his product online. Again, we're talking on digitalization platform. So he should have a digital catalog. He should have a digital website. That's a digitalization transformation. So we're helping him to this. And we're working with a couple of financial associations that is also working together with us, a European one and a Gulf one. And I really thank them for their support. And till now, we have trained in this year, fiscal year, around 100 companies. So these are new exporters coming to the market. And what we're aiming as an export association is our next step, hopefully early next year, is we will go and do what we call the Export Academy. And that will be the first of a kind in Egypt and in Africa. In collaboration again with the Egyptian Federation of Industry, of course, as well as the Ministry of Trade and the Ministry of of Planning, with our financial associations. But it will not only be limited to Egyptians, it will be for all Africa, and it's online. So when we do training for new exporters, whether it's from Egypt or from Africa, in again collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because they have the Agency for Development, African Development, and they are also willing to cooperate with us, is that means you're going to create a database of new exporters coming from Africa, which means you can link them with your Egyptian exporters, and you're enhancing indirectly the intertrade. So you have a couple of things you're hitting by initiating this Export Academy.
And training these new exporters, will they also be trained for the already existing products that
they have their own products?
Or are we going to also introduce new products such as energy, electricity and gas, which is becoming very much high on the agenda of the Egyptian
market? The energy and the electricity and gas, this is regulated by the government, basically, and being exported by the government, of course, through some private sector. But what we're looking at is how can we enhance our common I mean, you have in the engineering sector, you have the chemical sector, you have the furniture sector, you have the building material sector, you have the medical, the pharmaceutical, you have all these sectors that Egypt is leading in Africa in them. How can we enhance these exports, not only to Africa, but also to East Europe, because we are very weak in East Europe. And that's another market that if we focus on, we will, of course, double our exports and triple our exports. And this is a very nice very smart, again, agreement going on with the Egyptian government and the Italian government. They're doing a RoRo, which is a direct line between Alexandria and Trieste, which is moving the trucks on the vessel, going directly to the European market, directly to the wholesaler, selling your product there. So that's going to be taking 48 hours from Alexandria to Trieste. So in 2 days, your products are there.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, definitely there's a lot to talk about regarding not just the Egypt presiding over the COMESA summit, but also the exporting industry here in Egypt. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the coverage of the COMESA summit. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, the engineer Khaled Mekati, the chairman of the Egyptian Exporters Association. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Night International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.